Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone. Ramadan Mubarak. Happy Ramadan again and again. And we are so happy to have this CSR with you. So let me start by saying, I'm so happy to meet you guys again. My name is Qasim Arafat. I'm one of the lucky Koreachers, one of the lucky humans to be a part of this amazing company. Let me tell you a little bit about Koreach. Koreach is a coaching firm and a platform for businesses and individuals. We are a group of passionate advocates who came together to serve a purpose. What's our purpose? We want to prioritize the growth of the human elements within people so that together we build the world that we aspire to reach. We can't say that the sole meaning of life is to serve humanity, but courage exists for that purpose. We can't reach a prosperous world alone. That's why we serve all members of the human race to help them grow and with the earth. As a firm, we help leaders and teams connect with their human side, bring the creating sense of connection and safety that foster their workforce at all levels. We collaborate with individuals to help them elevate their self-awareness and lead their way towards personal and professional growth. In hopes of bringing purpose and our purpose to life, every year during this holy month of Ramadan, we give back to our community, offering daily talks and workshops that embrace different values. This year, our theme is purpose and fulfillment, where we look for the roots of our purpose, our why, where we welcome speakers from all over the world to share with you the real stories and real experiences, ones inspiring enough to ignite the life in you. So, drum rolls, please. Today we have one of the most amazing speakers ever and one of the amazing humans I've ever met in my life, Lynn Skotnitsky. Let me tell you a really short, unfair brief of Lynn. Lynn is a passionate lifelong learner, human potentialist, interculturalist, and educator, master certified coach, speaker with over 25 years of experience in development consulting in Canada and around the world, and most importantly, one of the most amazing mentors for humanity, not just in coaching. Lynn, thank you so much for being part of this Ramadan CSR. I'm so happy. We are so happy and delighted to have you with us.
Oh, thank you, Qasim. Wow, I am humbled by that introduction. And I just want to say how completely over the moon happy I am to have this opportunity to join with you for this very special time in Ramadan 2021. I want to wish everyone Ramadan Mubarak and to thank you for this invitation to participate in this wonderful event that we're all putting together. I've been asked to speak to you about kindness, grace, and philanthropy. And before we begin, I'd like to express to you with full transparency that I'm actually not an expert on this topic. And when I was invited to speak, I thought, who am I? Who am I to talk about philanthropy? And so it had me really do a lot of deep digging, a lot of reading, and then a lot of reviewing past projects and things that I haven't thought about in more than 10 or 15 or even 20 years. And so it actually brought a lot of learning to me, just having the opportunity to prepare for this presentation with you today. By the way, I want to say before I go further, you may see me look over to the side from time to time. As I begin to share my slides with you, I want to make sure that you're seeing what I see. So actually in this moment, I'm going to do that. I'm going to share my screen with you.
Amazing. And until you share your screen, let me just introduce to everyone that my friend Yazid is going to be handling and supporting you guys in the chat. So anything you want, please be engaged in the chat. He's going to be there for you. We have Nuran and Farida. They're going to be supporting you with anything technical you might face. And please be engaged. Prepare, if you can, have a paper and pen, something to write on. We're going to have so much fun. And in a while, we're going to have a question from Lynn that requires that pen and paper. So anything you want, we're here for your support. Lynn, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. And that's giving me a chance to, to check that you can also see this screen. So as I've been swirling in this topic about philanthropy, I started to realize that, you know, on one level, I don't see myself as a philanthropist because I'm not a wealthy person that donates millions to charity. However, as a human, I spent a good part of my time cultivating kindness and grace to the best of my ability. And I'm a real big believer in trusting that everything that happens for a reason, keeping my eyes and my heart open for learning that can come from any direction. And I'm so lucky because people and situations have always come into my life as great teachers. This has happened over and over again. And so as it happens, I was reading, actually listening to an audiobook about a week ago about philanthropy. And some of the stories just touched me so deeply. And it was within literally 24 hours that Kasim invited me to give a talk on this subject. And so I thought, well, okay, I'm not an expert in this field, but what I can model for you is being a learner. As a leadership coach and a consultant, as an educator, I often have experienced myself as a channel, channeling wisdom that's been passed to me and so generously shared with me over the years, and paying it forward to others so that they can make their own meaning. And so if I can do even a little bit of that today, then I will be fulfilling my purpose. And when we get to the end, I'll be happy to point to you further resources that emerge from today's sharing. I'm just going to put my eyes over here on the chat as well and see if I might be able to follow along other comments. So great. So as we know, kindness, grace, and philanthropy are noble values and ideas that can bring out the best in us and contribute greatly to a sense of purpose and fulfillment in life. And so as I begin this exploration with you today, I'd actually love to invite you to put your own mind on what brought you here today. And as Kasim mentioned, if you have a piece of paper handy or a pen, feel free to jot on that. Or if you're a tablet user or you have your laptop and you like to take notes in that way, I really want to invite you to track some of your thoughts as we go along today, and then see what emerges for you by the time we're finished. So really, the first question I'd love to pose to you is, what attracted you to this topic today? I know you're busy people and there's many different things that you could choose to put your time and your attention on. And so I'd love to invite you to ponder for yourself, what brought you here? And if you feel moved to write something in the chat, terrific. It's great to have some feedback as we flow along here. And you can also keep any of these thoughts to yourself private, whatever you prefer. So I'm just going to pause for a few moments longer and give you a chance to jot some of those thoughts down. What attracted you to this topic of kindness, grace, and philanthropy? Oops. All right, so now I'm going to ask you another question, and this is going right into the heart of things. And I'm going to talk about this for a few moments, and then I'm going to ask you to give yourself a rating. So if you were to check in right now, we're going to treat this as a checking inward and a kind of like a baseline for yourself of here and now, like a snapshot. If you were to think about your current satisfaction with your relationship with money. Now, why am I going straight to the money issue, you might wonder? Well, we often associate philanthropy with money. Now, it's not the only thing, but it's actually a really important kind of energy in our life, money. And it's great to have an opportunity to kind of check in and notice how we feel about money. So I'm not asking you, how happy are you with how much money you have? I'm actually talking about your relationship with money. So you might reflect on how you earn your money, how you spend your money. You might think about your satisfaction with the way you track your money or how you manage it, the amount of time and energy you put in around planning related to money, and in general, how you think and how you feel about money. So there are many dimensions here. You're free to choose one of these aspects or take an overall global sense of what is your current satisfaction with your relationship with money. Yeah, lovely. And thank you, Sarah, for sharing in the chat. So Sarah has shared with us, I want to have a healthier relationship with money. That's wonderful. I would say that's probably true for all of us. And I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us. And Saud, you've also given us a rating so far. So maybe this is a good moment for us to launch our poll. And this will be, it's an anonymous poll, but when we're done, we will have a sense of the aggregate of all of us together here. What is our current satisfaction? So you'll see numbers from 1 to 10, and all you have to do is select your current level of satisfaction. Another way to understand this question is, if you and money were in a relationship together, what would money say about you? I mean, what would you say about it? Now, I just happen to have my spare laptop open here so that I can see what your slides look like. So I'm going to give myself a rating over here too and participate. Great. And meanwhile, whatever comments you'd like, we've got money always goes and comes back. Yes, there's a sense of flow around money. And money would say to me, stay a little bit longer. Yeah, indeed. Money might say to me, I wish you'd give me more love and attention more often. And it's funny, there's an author, her name is Maria Nemeth, and she wrote a book called The Energy of Money. And she talks about money being a kind of energy along with other kinds of energy, like the way that we experience support and friendship from others, the way we experience our creativity, our relationship with time, our relationship with our own vitality. And it's so interesting how we can begin to notice the patterns we have in our life, perhaps with money, may even map over other forms of energy, like our creativity, our capacity to harness support from others, and so on. Lovely. And Maha, oh, it's so lovely to have you with us today. Welcome, Maha. And you shared that money flows easily in my life. Lovely. And James, sometimes me and my money is always in social distancing mode. Oh, I love it. Love it. Yeah, we can notice that. And Iman, show me the blessing. Beautiful. And so assuming everyone has had an opportunity to vote, are you able to publish the results of our poll here, Kasim? Just checking with you. Great. And meanwhile, I'll share, Sarah, sometimes it scares me. I feel like it's a source of safety sometimes. Yeah. I really want to be free from such feelings and be less concerned about it. Yes, indeed. Great. And we have here now the results of our poll. And again, these numbers are they don't mean anything to anyone except what they mean to you. This is just a way of checking in internally on something we might think of as the sea of qualitative experience. And to put it on a scale is a way of helping us appreciate what's there already that we can feel grateful for, and also give us ideas about what would we like to make even better. And so I'll take us to our next slide here. And the poll again, can it be shared again? Sausan, I'm not exactly sure if we can reactivate the poll. Kasim, are you able to speak to that?
I already put her in the chat. The
Perfect.
question is to scale it.
Super. All right, so here's the thing. Money and all of the different kinds of energy and the feelings that we have around money are behaviors related to money. And this is one of the most complex relationships in our lives. And it really does impact all the aspects of our existence. And yet we're rarely taught in an overt way how to be empowered in our relationship with money. And so this work that I've stumbled upon recently, the work of Lynn Twist, who is a great philanthropist, I want to share some of the things I've learned from her book with you today, and hope that you come away with a greater feeling of empowerment. Great. And I'm just going to, before I move on, share some of these other items in the chat. Let's see, it's moving quite quickly. I'll see if I can put my eyes on something. Yeah, I'm trying to improve my relationship with money to be able to remove the fear-based thinking and lack. Yes, exactly. And you know, some of that, it's just we absorb it from our culture, right? And so this is all of us, all of our work to do is to move out of fear and into our empowerment, into our creative resourcefulness, and into trusting that life will actually provide for us. All right, so here's the question. Knowing what rating you gave yourself as a baseline, where would you like your satisfaction to be on a scale of 1 to 10? So if you gave it a 6, for example, what would make things even better? And what number would you like to give it? So I'd also like to reassure you that it's not necessary to have 10 out of 10 on every scale in life, whatever it is we're scaling. That this is just a useful tool for helping us notice what's there already and giving us ideas, stimulating ideas in our mind about how we might like to grow and develop and improve our lives. And so whatever numbers you choose are absolutely okay. And I see Rana has shared, maybe I need to learn more about managing my expenses and get more reconciliation with money to feel more abundant about it. Yeah, often we put things out of our minds. I don't know about you, but I'm a little bit guilty of, you know, automating as many things as I could in terms of, you know, bill paying and things like that over the last decade at least, which is a wonderful feature of technology, frees up our time for other things. And yet I see that I have actually not paid attention as frequently as I used to the flow of money for that reason. And, you know, sometimes there have been mistakes and it takes me 6 months to notice that I've been overpaying the hydro company or something like that. And so, yeah, I'm sure that there are examples of this for all of us, but wanting to feel more tuned in. Great. And then Saud has shared, care and kindness is like a boomerang. What you give is what you get. Beautiful. The same for money. Absolutely. That's a wonderful way to put it. And actually is, you know, the heart of the message that Lynn Twist shares in her book. All right, so I'm going to move us on to this next question. So just suppose that you could have that higher number that you chose on your rating scale, and whatever that means to you. So maybe that means feeling more connected with the flow of your money. Maybe it feeling like you have more control of your finances. Maybe it's about feeling more like you are connected in this boomerang of give and take. And maybe it's about feeling like you want to be a better role model for your children. Whatever it is, just notice that if you could have that, what a difference it could make in your life. I'm also going to just pause and give a few moments of silence while you can jot on paper for yourself, or you can type something in the chat.
I am so enjoying the talk so far.
Oh, lovely. I'm so
Love
glad.
it.
So this is giving you a chance to just kind of set some ideas in motion for yourself. And I really invite you to now let those thoughts that have emerged so far hover, because your deeper knowledge system will be working on this stuff in the background as we're moving through this conversation today. So I want to ask you now, just suppose that it's about 75 minutes from now, and you're walking away with a great result from today's gathering, from our time together here. And so what might be a great result for you today? Might be some new insights, might be a way that you forgive yourself for something around money. Maybe it's a way that you acknowledge some great things you've been doing all along related to your money, your relationship with money. So what might you be seeing differently, if you could imagine it? How do you want to feel walking away from our time together? What has shifted for you? Again, if you want to jot something down for yourself, I'll just pause for a moment. All right, so I'm going to dive into our content now today. And I think it's worth it for us to start with a little bit of working definition. So I, of course, went to Google online and found a definition from Oxford Dictionary. And this is how they define philanthropy: as the desire to promote the welfare of others, especially expressed by generous donations of money to good causes. I don't know about you, but that's pretty much the definition of philanthropy that's been kind of in my head, not in an overt or conscious way, but kind of in the underground. That's kind of how I've been defining philanthropy. And it's a bit of a narrow definition, actually. So I'm going to take you to this next one. And this next one says, philanthropy refers to charitable acts or other good works that help others or society as a whole. So philanthropy can include donating money to a worthy cause, and it also includes volunteering your time, your effort, and other forms of altruism. And I noticed when I was doing a bit of research around this, there's a website, World Giving, I believe it's called. And they did a big poll, people from 140 countries, and they asked them something like, in the last month, how many times have you donated money to a worthy cause, helped a stranger, or volunteered your time and energy? And so the ranking that they gave all these different countries in terms of their charitable acts is based on this broader definition of philanthropy and not just how much money we give. So I think this is a really important aspect of understanding the energy of money, that it's not just about cash or how much we have, but it's actually about our relationship to it. And so when this broader definition came to me, I thought to myself, this is a definition that speaks to me more truly. And so I'll even take it a step further, and let's break it down from the Greek. And we look at the word phil, which actually means love of, and then anthropos, referring to humans. And so really, philanthropy is love of humankind. And when that clicked for me, I was like, oh, okay, now that's a definition that really resonates for me. And I think about my own orientation in life, as a learner, as a coach and an educator, and working in community and international development settings over the course of my life. I've had enormous and humbling privileges to work with people in, more than 25 countries so far, and experience, for me, what is just complete magic of connecting with people from different cultures and, learning about their hopes and dreams and the vision that they have for their lives and how the difference they want to make in their families, their businesses, their communities, and then help them ignite and amplify their potential, help them activate and sustain themselves to bring their dreams into reality. And, I think about my work. I feel quite emotional about it. Over and over and over again, I have this experience of just falling in love with humanity. And so, I sort of had a bit of an awakening as I was doing this research. Maybe I'm a philanthropist too. Maybe I am. Maybe I could call myself that. I feel a little bit humble about that because in my mind, I've always compared myself to the folks with the big bucks, right? And so I plant this question to you too. How do you experience yourself as a philanthropist? Yeah, and I'm seeing some comments in the chat. Really love here. With great money comes great responsibility. This is James, and that and Reem, philanthropy is love of humankind. Yeah. So actually, it brings back a story that I'd love to tell, and I know a few of you have heard this story before. It's the first time I've understood this story from this slightly different lens, and so it feels new again to me. And so I bring you to a couple of pictures I dug around in old photo albums of when I was a child. I was about 11 when my family started traveling to Mexico. And so this picture on the left is the village that we ended up spending significant time in. And eventually my parents, they started going back every year, and then they got some land and they built a home, and they became deeply embedded in this small community in rural Mexico. Way back, like this was when we first started going to this little village, there was one refrigerator in town that people shared. And there were about 1,000 inhabitants, and it was just a little fishing village. Now, 40 years later, it's a thriving tourist mecca. But back then, it was a very rustic little place, and there was something so magical about this place. And my parents just fell in love with it, and so it started this lifelong relationship with Mexico. And so one of our early trips, the picture on the right is actually a family that are good friends and all their little kids. And that's a picture of my mom. I actually couldn't find any pictures of myself at this age, but here's the story I'd love to share. On that first trip going south, we were in a truck and camper, and my grandparents came along, and my folks and my 2 younger brothers. And we were, it was like a long drive from Canada down to Mexico, 4 or 5 days. And at some point, the truck broke down. And there we were in this small little village that looks very much like the picture on the left. And we're standing on the sidewalk, and it's a blazing hot day. and there's no trees nearby. And, you know, all of us kids, we're just waiting around wondering what's going to happen and how long is it going to take? And, you know, do they have to order in parts and so on? And there was a family next door to us, and they saw us standing around there. And at some point, the mom, the woman, she waved us over. And so we walked over there, my mom and my two brothers and I, and they invited us into their yard, which was, you know, the yard was surrounded like with a fence made of sticks, and the yard was dirt that was just swept all tidy. And they had a big lemon tree in the middle of the yard. I'll never forget this because it was the first time I had seen lemons growing on a tree live. I mean, being from Canada, that's unheard of. And so the lady indicated that we could sit on these chairs in the shade of the tree. And then she went in the house and she came out with a tray and a bunch of glasses of homemade lemonade. And I was really taken aback by this. I mean, first of all, we didn't speak any Spanish, and they spoke very little English. And, you know, this kindness, this generosity that was expressed to us. And anyway, there was a lot of playing charades and guessing at words and, you know, trying to exchange pleasantries, trying to communicate. But I knew a little bit of French from having studied it in school, and the French and the Spanish were very close together. And before long, I was guessing and really trying to put words together. And I was really eager to communicate with these folks. And I guess the dad, the papa, he must have noticed my enthusiasm because he beckoned me to come in the house. So in the house I went and into their kitchen, and there was a big calendar on the wall. And he began to teach me the days of the week and the months of the year in Spanish. And, you know, you think, okay, isn't that sweet? But there was something so profound about that experience. It was his presence. It was the way he listened with such patience and genuine interest. And, you know, I felt like a real person. I felt valued. I felt like I mattered. And, you know, that kind of attention is rare for so many of us. But, you know, there was something about that was so magical, that quality of listening, that it ignited in me, well, first of all, a lifelong relationship with Mexico, but beyond that, a deep curiosity and fascination with connecting with people from other cultures and not letting language or, you know, the way people look be a barrier to finding our shared humanity. And, you know, it set the tone, and it put me on the path of the work that has been so rich and rewarding throughout my life. And that fascination has never faded. And I think, you know, that man may never have known the positive impact that he made on my life. And he, you know, it all began with he and his wife's generosity to rescue some sunburned tourists on a hot day. And, you know, I think about that, and I think they lived in a humble home with a corrugated tin roof and a dirt swept floor, and they were philanthropists. So, you know, thanks to that impactful connection, I've experienced most of my most powerful learning in life by traveling and connecting with people from different cultures and getting perspective on both the strengths and the limitations of my own culture by getting to see it from a distance. And you know, more than 50 years later now, and traveling to, I don't know, more than 45 countries now, and having experienced the kindness and the grace of so many strangers, and now, you know, having led programs around the world since the mid-90s, I really experienced myself as a child of the planet, as like really my tribe is the human family. And I'm just here to tell you that we have so much to learn from each other, and that our diversity is our greatest opportunity. And it all came from that family. It just still touches me so deeply to this day. So I'm going to move on now and get a little bit more heady here, a little bit more let's share some concepts from the work of The Soul of Money and Lynn Twist's work. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. And so really the rest of our time together here today, I would love to weave between some of the concepts that I believe are very empowering in the work of Lynn Twist, and also reflections on some of my own experiences and perhaps some of yours you might share in the chat. So I'd love to weave something together here among us. And so first I'd like to start with Lynn Twist. She is an American philanthropist and the founder of the Soul of Money Institute. And she's also the co-founder of the Pachamama Alliance. And I'm going to share a little bit about these organizations in a moment. And she's also been an international fundraiser for, as far as I understand, more than 4 decades now, for another organization called the Hunger Project. She has been deeply inspired by the work of Mother Teresa and the missionaries of charity, and by many others around the world. And at the end of my presentation, by the way, I have a slide with lots of links to resources that you can explore further when we're done here. So I really want to start by just sharing with you the Soul of Money Institute's mission. So their mission is to provide transformational and educational programs that inspire and empower people, companies, and institutions of various kinds to do a number of things. First of all, to get greater alignment between their acquisition, what comes in, and their allocation, what goes out, of their financial resources, and to do it in a way that aligns with their values. Now, this is something for those of you who are coaches. You know, we spend a lot of time helping people get in touch with their values, activate them, amplify them, and operate from them. And so, you know, this is deeply resonant work. Another thing that's part of their mission is to help people move from fear and this sort of treadmill of constant consumption. And I don't know what it's like in Saudi Arabia, but you know, certainly United States and to some extent in Canada, there's this, you know, the constant consumption and more and better. And also a mentality of scarcity, like there's never seems to be enough and we're always wanting more. And to move from that kind of mindset and sort of economy and culture to an economy of what she calls sufficiency, sustainability, and generosity. And so that, you know, we can keep this, as Saud shared, keep this boomerang going back and forth of care and kindness and helping others. This is what Lynn Twist's work has been all about. Another element of their mission is to generate an expanding flow of resources towards the affirmation of life and towards the common good. And then finally, to enable people to relate to money and to the money culture with greater freedom and power and effectiveness. And I'm like, yeah, I'd love more of that. How about you? That really sounds resonant to me. It sounds like such a beautiful mission and so inspiring. So this is the soulofmoney.org, whenever you choose to go deeper with their work. I'd also like to take a moment to share a little bit about the Pachamama Alliance. This is how I first knew about Lynn Twist. Years ago, I was exposed to a program called Awaken the Dreamer that was created by the Pachamama Alliance. And this is a group of people in the Amazon jungle that have lived sustainably, peacefully, and very happily for, you know, centuries. And it was really only in the last few decades that they had contact with the outside world. And they didn't have a money economy, and yet they had everything they needed. And so Lynn, her husband, and another friend of theirs, somehow they ended up meeting with them, and they the result of their gathering was, of course, their great concern for protecting the rainforests in the Amazon, and they formed the Pachamama Alliance. And so this alliance, I love the mission statement. It's been close to my heart ever since I was first introduced to it. The vision that informs the Pachamama Alliance's work is of a world that works for everyone, and environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, and socially just human presence on this planet. A new dream for humanity. That's such a touching vision statement. And I encourage you, again, go to that website when you have time. They've got some really gorgeous videos that talk about the story and the dream culture of this indigenous culture. And I think you'll really take a lot of nourishment and inspiration from that, and ideas maybe for where, what you'd like to do in the future. Yeah, and Jawahir, it feels like after year we've had financially and emotionally, helping others and ourselves understand the energy of money has become a vital and very timely. Oh, I so agree with you. No better time to change the way we think about money and its potential energy. Yeah, beautiful words. Well said. It is so timely now more than ever. All right. And so the first concept that Lynn brings to her work in the Soul of Money Institute, and she, by the way, does ongoing workshops, educational programming. Of course, she's got her book. I got her audiobook. And then there's a number of videos online, and there's like online programs and in-person. Well, we don't know what in-person looks like now, post-COVID, but there's a whole variety of different resources that I just want to let you know you can go deeper when the time is right for you around these. So one of the concepts that I really love of Lynn's work, and that also resonates so much for me as a coach, is this idea of grounded optimism. It's so easy for us to just be overcome with the problems of the world. We've got big problems on the planet right now. We've got environmental destruction. We've got people that are starving, and we've got people that are just obscenely, that's not a word, obscenely or insanely, if you put it together, wealthy, more money than they possibly know what to do with. And so we have these huge paradoxes in our society, and heart-wrenching poverty. And so it's really easy for us to swim in all of the negative conversations every day in the media, and to get caught up in our own feelings of fear and scarcity. And many of us have suffered in many ways because of COVID and for other reasons, right? And so all of that is true. And the thing is, though, that we can get stuck. We can get stuck in all of that swirl of the pain and the awfulness of life. And we can get stuck in that and say, I can't do anything about that. It's just the way it is. And so Lynn says, Lynn Twist, what's courageous is actually to find what there is here and now that you can use to empower yourself to generate possibility. She says a grounded optimist is someone who's always willing to stand for the possibilities, no matter what's going on. And, we all have that inside of us. Human beings are hardwired to be resourceful and capable. Think about your own life. Think about the ways that you have gotten through tough times in the past, the ways that you have stepped out of your comfort zone and made a situation better. Think of we have an expression, the ways that you come up smelling like a rose through a difficult situation. And so, as coaches, we cultivate our own mindset to really believe in the best of people, that people are doing the very best they can every day. They're making the best choices. They operate with positive intentions, and that change is available to all of us. These are some of the fundamental principles that Milton Erickson, who was the founder, who was a great teacher of Marilyn Atkinson, who founded Ericksonian coaching, the body of work that I'm a practitioner of, and all of our wonderful colleagues at CoReach are also practitioners of. And so we have this as a baseline of really cultivating a mindset of seeing the possibilities in people and situations. And so this isn't something that happens overnight. This is a cultivation over and over and over again. We notice what's, where the pain points are. And I'm not saying we sweep them under the rug. We just hold that this is true. And what is also true is our human capacity for hope and innovation and faith and all of these qualities that have sustained us over the millennia. All right, now on a funnier note, I found this on Facebook. I don't know if you guys are big Facebook fans, but I am. I use it as a source of inspiration most of the time. And I saw this and I thought it was kind of funny. Apocalyptimist. So that's somebody who thinks, everything's going to go sideways. It's all going crazy, but still things are going to turn out okay. All right, so grounded optimism and how it maps over coaching. When I do this, just think of a Venn diagram. They overlap a lot with each other. And so as coaches, we help people, first of all, acknowledge their current reality. What is true for you here and now? Now, it doesn't mean that we go looking for problems, but if someone brings a problem to the table, we're going to help them see their life with eyes wide open, face the truth, whatever your truth is, with courage and with optimism. And then whatever the current reality is, we ask, what would you rather have instead of that? And that is a beautiful strategy for shifting our mind and letting our brain do what it does best, which is our mind, when we can visualize something in the positive, we begin to naturally organize ourselves, organize our resources and our time and our energy around the flashes of imagery that we get of the way that things can be better. This has always been true of humanity, but really in the 20th and 21st century, with the rise of coaching, we're starting to understand from a brain science perspective why this is so. It's like, this capacity that we have as humans for abstract thought, this ability to see something in our mind's eye that doesn't yet exist in reality, and then go about through harnessing our own energy and money and time and resources and cooperating with others, we can bring things into being. And this is how everything that we currently enjoy in our life that supports us, every piece of technology, the clothing we wear, the shelter, everything that we enjoy that makes our life better, at some point, it was only the seed of an idea in somebody's mind. It is quite magical what we can create. So putting our attention on what we want and putting more attention on what we want than what we don't want is a real source of power and creativity. And so the next step with coaching often is we ask someone, okay, in this big scary thing that's going on for you right now, what part of this is within your control? And then we begin to chunk down something that feels overwhelming. This is another way that we're cultivating our grounded optimism. We're grounded in reality, eyes wide open. And what can I do with what I have right now, here, today? And then this naturally unleashes our own creative and innovative thinking around possibilities. And then we see what the next step is. And we take the next step, and then we take the next step, and then we take the next step. And this is the magic of how coaching can help people harness their energy for worthwhile causes, whether it's, building a business that can really make a difference in your community, in your country, in the world, whether it's some initiative that benefits the whole community, whether it's helping others less fortunate than yourself. Yeah. Lovely. And Banan, you've said, focus on what you have and what you can control. Absolutely. This is the message. Yeah. Beautiful. All right. Well, I'd love to share a story that came from Mother Teresa. Well, it was a learning that Mother Teresa gave to a powerful lesson that she gave to Lynn Twist. When I heard this story, I was really moved by it. So it turns out that, well, one more thing before I dive into the story, I just want to say, I see Mother Teresa as such a shining example of someone who has practiced grounded optimism her whole life long in the face of, extreme hardships that most of us would never even imagine. She worked with the poorest of the poor. And by the end of her life, she had something like more than 500 foundations, missions, caring for the sick, the dying, orphans, people that were cast out by society. She took on some of the hardest work that anybody could ever take on, and yet every day found practical ways to make a difference in people's lives. So, she's a really shining example of grounded optimism. So anyway, Lynn Twist, it turns out that in her work with the Hunger Project, which she apparently was a fundraiser for more than 30 years for the Hunger Project, and her, one of her jobs was to travel around the world and harness the goodwill and, channel some of the resources of those who have much to support those who have less. And so, she found herself, of course, several trips to India. And finally, after about 5 years of traveling there, she had this opportunity to meet Mother Teresa, who had been a role model for her ever since she was young. And so the driver, took her into Old Delhi, into this narrow alley, down a street that was quite obscure in this part of the city. And there, on a stone wall, this modest sign, the Old Delhi Orphanage. And when she arrived, there was a small baby wrapped in newspaper on the doorstep. She was astonished. So, of course, she picked up the baby and she knocked on the door, and the door opened, and there was, 2 light bulbs hanging from wires in the ceiling. And as she stepped in, she noted this beautiful open space that was cleanly swept, and 50 cribs for babies and mats. And so, of course, she handed the baby, and they received the baby with love and devotion. She said she was just taken aback at this feeling of all these people caring for these babies. These are all orphans under the age of 2. And so, instantly she was touched by the amount of sort of sense of commitment and devotion in the room. And the people were absolutely delighted to receive another baby. And there was just a feeling of such calm and peace in the room. And it turned out that Mother Teresa wasn't there yet. She had been detained. And so they put her to work, bathing some of the babies and feeding them. And so she spent about 45 minutes or so. And then Mother Teresa was ready to see her. And so she walked down a long hallway and found herself in a very simple room. And there, the beautiful Mother Teresa, who, was just a beacon of inspiration for Lynn, greeted her and invited her to sit down. And there they had a beautiful conversation around fundraising and around, apparently Mother Teresa, gave her a lot of praise for her work with the Hunger Project, and said it was making a real difference in the world. And she said that her own work, Mother Teresa, she described herself as God's pencil. And she could see that Lynn too was God's pencil. And Lynn was just moved to tears by this conversation that they had. And they were, sharing about philanthropy around the world. And then suddenly their wonderful, intimate conversation was interrupted by this loud scuffling noise coming down the hallway. And suddenly this middle-aged couple, very tall, very large, heavily perfumed, just burst into the room and moved aggressively towards them. And the woman was covered in precious stones and diamonds and bangles. And she had this opulently embroidered sari and very heavy makeup. And her husband apparently was even bigger and flashier than she was. And there was a large topaz in the middle of his turban and rings on all his fingers. And into this quiet, humble space where they were, the contrast was just completely shocking to Lynn. And apparently they wanted a picture. So they shoved a camera into Lynn's hand and said, "We want a picture. We need to have a picture. We didn't get a picture." And then they gathered Mother Teresa up and put her against a wall and shoved in beside her and wanted a number of pictures. And at one point, Mother Teresa, who of course was quite bent over from osteoporosis, the woman put her hand under her chin and kind of forced her chin up. "Look in the camera," she said. And Lynn was just absolutely outraged by this, but she just took the pictures hoping that they would leave soon. And soon enough they left, not even thanking them. And the thing that really struck Lynn was Mother Teresa returned to her table and her chair and sat down with Lynn again, as if nothing had even happened. And just picked up where they left off, finishing her thoughts on their earlier conversation. And Lynn was so full of anger and outrage that they would treat Mother Teresa in this way, so what seemed disrespectfully, that she could hardly concentrate. Anyway, it was time to say goodbye. And so they embraced and wished each other well. And she had this long ride home, and she was pondering over and over again this dreadful scene of what she felt like was insult and entitlement, and noticed how much she just felt hatred for the bossy, obnoxious, arrogant, rich people. And after about 20 minutes, she started to calm down, and then she realized that she had just tripped into her own hatred and prejudice. And when she got back, she sat down immediately and she wrote a letter to Mother Teresa, asking her for her forgiveness and also asking her for her advice, because she had just confronted the limits of her own compassion. And Mother Teresa wrote back soon after, and this was the story this was what really touched me. She said that while you have expressed compassion for the poor and the sick and the weak all your life, that will always be a place where your self-expression and your service is easily going to flourish. The vicious cycle of poverty has clearly been articulated and is widely known. What's less obvious and goes almost unacknowledged in our society is the vicious cycle of wealth. There is very little recognition of the trap that wealth so often is. The suffering of wealthy people, the loneliness, the isolation, the hardening of their hearts, the gap between their own experience and, everyday experience of people in relationship with each other. There's a hunger and a poverty of the soul that can come with the burden of wealth. And she encouraged Lynn to practice compassion for the strong and the wealthy and the powerful. She said they need as much compassion as anyone else, and you must open your heart to them, become their student and their teacher. Include them too. They are also your work. This was such a shocking revelation to Lynn, and it ended up impacting all the work that she ended up doing as a philanthropist, raising money around the world. And she ended up giving all kinds of counsel and guidance and coaching to people of enormous wealth in various places around the world that were really genuinely suffering with a lack of purpose. And when they found their purpose through their own examining their own values, and began to contribute to causes that mattered to them, their own sense of humanity and optimism and purpose and fulfillment began to flourish. And this happened so many times over and over again that it really, really touched her. And so, you know, to me, it also had me, when I was reading that story, examine sometimes my own unconscious biases around wealth. And of course, we know there are many wonderful people in the world who have done great things with their wealth. And we know that there are people who are selfish and narcissistic and power hungry and do unhealthy things for society with their wealth. So it's, you know, it's a polarity, just like many of the polarities and paradoxes that we confront in the complexity of our life with the energy of money. So I'm just going to pause here for a moment. I've shared a lot. I just want to know what's coming up for you right now as you hear this story and some of what I've shared so far. And feel free to write a few comments in the chat if you'd like.
I may say this actually really makes sense. This other compassionate side. We never see the other side. We always are focusing on the poverty, the less, the poor. But really, nothing is perfect. Nothing comes with everything.
Yeah.
There's compassion here, there's compassion there, and different kind of sides, but it's still compassion. It really made sense.
Yeah, I certainly know it's opened my mind, and also just noticing that, you know, when you notice this thing where you might notice people tripping into this sense of superiority, that they're better than other people because of their money, even that is a poverty of the soul, right? And to find within ourselves compassion for that, even as someone's treating us as less than, you know, I can see how the capacity for growing our own spiritual development is available to us when we think about all of these dichotomies in our lives. It's a deep topic. Yeah, thank you. I hope I'm saying your name right, Jawahir. I hope I said it right. It matters to me to pronounce people's names correctly. And Kasim, if you know, seeing as you speak Arabic, maybe you can correct me.
So you can call it Jawahir.
Jawahir, that's better,
Yes.
Jawahir. So I love your comment, the burden of wealth. It's a radical perspective to take on this level of compassion and, you know, cultivate it for ourselves, because we're human, nobody's perfect. All of us are, you know, on a road of development, are lifelong around some of these issues. Yeah, Jawahir, right? Jawahir, Jawahir. One more time.
Jawahir, and it means
Jawahir.
Yes.
And it means jewel. Beautiful. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's gorgeous. All right. So I want to now just give some kudos to some of the folks who are wealthy and who have given a lot to their societies. And when I started to do a little bit of research about this, there were literally thousands of names. And so I just had to pick randomly what kind of popped up. And so Bill and Melinda Gates, of course, they've got a foundation and they've given more than $35 billion to charities. Warren Buffett, another one, 34 billion. These are numbers that are hard for us to actually conceptualize. Like $1 billion is so much more than $1 million. And $1 million is a lot. George Soros, 32 billion. And so this is a Hungarian and born American. Asim Premji, who is from India, 21 billion. And he's a business high-tech tycoon, I guess you could call him, who's given enormous amounts of money to charity. Suleiman Al-Rajhi, I believe I've said his name right. He is, I understand, an amazing story, rags to riches, and then with his wealth, bestowed it for community and charitable causes. And I've seen him refer to as rags to riches to rags. I don't know if that's true or not, but I understand him to be a wonderful philanthropist in your country. Wafiq Saeed, and he is actually Syrian born and holds both Saudi and Canadian citizenship. So we get to share him. And he also is been a wonderful philanthropist. And one thing that I thought was remarkable about his work is that they have a son who was disabled, and then they created a big foundation worldwide, one of the first, to help people with disabilities. And then, of course, many members of the royal family, and there were so many to list here. I just put them in one category. And so, you know, these other folks, they weren't necessarily born into wealth. Some of them made their millions through, you know, enormous business success, or, you know, people like Oprah Winfrey is another example in the United States, at least. And then some, of course, are born into wealth, and they have a built-in the noblesse oblige, that expression, which is about you know, being the patron of many good causes. And I think, you know, most of the royal families around the world have a number of initiatives where they are raising money and bringing attention to important causes in the world. All right, I would love to share another story with you. And yes, I just remind you that if you have any questions or comments, keep putting them in the chat. I love hearing your impressions as we're moving along. And so I'd love to share another story. Again, this is from Lynn Twist's book, The Soul of Money. And something that this really, I thought was so amazing. So apparently in 1978, early in her career as a fundraiser with the Hunger Project, she had been asked to do some a fundraising event by some community leaders in Harlem. So I've got a picture here that just represents a typical street in Harlem in New York, which is, you know, quite notorious for being a really rough and hard, poor neighborhood or area of New York, of Upper Manhattan. And so, you know, at first she thought, gosh, why would they want me to do fundraising in Harlem? But okay, it was a community development project. She agreed to go. And then it turned out she got a call on the same day to go meet a CEO of a huge food company, some big giant in the industry. And so she had these two things she had to do in the same day. And so she went to meet with the CEO first, and it was this towering skyscraper. And, you know, she recounted in the book how much time she spent figuring out what would be the right thing to wear to set the right tone, to give a good impression, and, you know, rehearsing her speech and all the rest. So she finds herself going up and up and up in this elevator. But this place, it wasn't just one elevator to get to the CEO's office. Apparently there were 2 or 3 banks of elevators she had to take. And as she found herself going higher and higher, she just noticed feeling more and more sort of disconnected from everyday life. And apparently the whole reason that this CEO was going to give her a donation was because this company had had some, you know, done some nasty things, had an image problem, and they needed to do some damage control. And so PR had recommended to them that, you know, making a donation to the Hunger Project would be a way to be seen as, you know, making a contribution and, you know, helping clean up their image. So anyway, in she goes. She's ushered into the CEO's office, and, you know, the first thing she notices are gleaming surfaces everywhere and ceiling to floor windows and this breathtaking view of the skyline. And, you know, it took her breath away. The place was so beautiful, the office. And so here she is meeting with the CEO, and she had only 15 minutes. So she got right to her point, describing the mission and the courage that hungry people and the partnership that we all needed to provide them in their commitment to building conditions for healthy and productive life. So she was really emphasizing around partnership with people, not just giving people money, but helping them actually take active roles in building their lives. And so when she was done her presentation, he just opened a drawer, pulled out a check for $50,000 and handed it to her. And she said that his tone and his manner gave her this clear message that he had no genuine interest in their work or with connecting with resource poor people, or that making, any kind of a difference to ending world hunger was even something he cared about. This was just purely a strategic move. She said she felt like when he passed her that check, he just offloaded a bunch of guilt and shame about the public mistakes that the company had made right along with that check. It was like both things came together. And on the elevator ride down, she just had this feeling of being unsettled and unhappy, even though this was the largest amount of money she had received to date from any single contributor. And she knew that everybody at the Hunger Project would be thrilled to receive this money and have lots of ideas about how, what they could put, good use they could put it to. And so the next meeting she had was in Harlem, and, with all the transportation and stuff, she had to make her way. And then, the weather changed and she arrives in the middle of a rainstorm to this old church building. And so she walks into the basement room where about 75 people had gathered for a fundraising event. And she was like, the surroundings could not have been more different than that CEO's office. It was raining and there was leaks all over and the sound of water dripping in buckets. And it was funny because she said she felt both relieved and also self-conscious, more comfortable in lots of ways in this gathering than in the corporate suite, but also aware that she was the only white face in the room. And the silk dress that she'd picked to impress the CEO now felt really officious and just silly. And so she, had this feeling of awkwardness. And she looked out at the audience and she knew that the people there didn't have much money to give. But she proceeded with the presentation anyway. And so she decided to speak about the Hunger Project's commitment to Africa, because she thought it would be most relevant to their lives and also to their heritage. And then when it came time to ask for the donations, she said, my palms were sweating and I really wondered if it was the right thing to do. And then when she made her request, the room fell dead silent. And then after this long pause, a woman stood up at the back of the room. And this woman was tall, in her late 60s. She had gray hair, held back tightly by a bun. And she was proud and slim and elegant and held her head up and her shoulders back. And she she stood up and she said, "Girl, my name is Gertrude, and I like what you said, and I like you. Now, I ain't got no checkbook and I ain't got no credit cards. To me, money is a lot like water. For some folks, it rushes through their life like a raging river. For me, it's more like a trickle. But I want to pass it on in a way that does the most good for the most folks. I see that as my right and my responsibility, and it's also my joy. I have $50 in my purse and I earned it from doing a white woman's wash, and I want to give it to you." And she walked up and she handed Lynn her money in 1s and 5s and 10s. And then she gave Lynn a big hug. And then other people started contributing in small amounts of money as well, 1s, 5s, 10s, $20 gifts. And Lynn said she was so moved that the tears were just rolling down her face. Then she couldn't hold all the bills in her hands, so she opened her briefcase and she put it on the table next to, to have it act as a basket for the money. She said what touched her so deeply, there was such a sense of integrity and heart as people streamed up to give their money. She said it was like there was some kind of energy that Gertrude carried when she stood up, this energy of commitment to make a difference. And it was like the stamp on her own soul. And it renewed Lynn's own integrity and expression of purpose in her own work. And she said, you know, those people that gave in the church that night, their money came from a heartfelt desire to make a difference and not from some intention to ease their guilt or buy admiration from others. And it was like Gertrude had set the standard for everyone in that room. And then everyone in that room gave from their hearts, and it felt like that money was blessed. And she said the next thing that happened was, after she left, the next day, actually, I should say, she did something completely unheard of for herself and for others at that time. She mailed back the $50,000 check to that executive, and she wrote him a letter suggesting that maybe they should choose an organization that they felt committed to and thank them for considering them. And she felt like she was returning not only the check, but also the guilt and the shame that it carried. And the funny thing about it, she didn't hear back from that CEO at the time, but years later, he contacted her again. And this time he had retired. Yeah, I believe he had retired. And she said he contacted her again. That brought their first really awkward transaction to a surprising and beautiful completion, because he had had time for deep reflection that she had ignited in that act of returning the check. And after he retired, he realized that he really did care. And he ended up donating a personal amount of money to the Hunger Project that Lynn said was many, many times larger than that original $50,000, and that he gave it truly from his heart. And so, once again, big lessons. And so, you know, over time, with Lynn's experiences of moving in and out of these different experiences, working with people who had a lot and people who had a little, she really came to understand that what became the most clear was that when people were able to align their money with what and who they cared about, with causes that mattered, with improving situations that were in their face, or, you know, connecting with something, with healing from their own loss and making a difference for others who might suffer similar consequences, where they could alchemize their own pain and make a difference for others. That these ways, when people align with their deepest and most soulful interests and commitments, that their relationship with money became a place of profound and lasting transformation. And so I love this story so much, because their money, no matter what the amount, became the conduit for this kind of change. All right, so another story I share with you. And we are into, let me see, how much time have we got left, Kasim? I want to check with you. I'm in a flow state here, so.
So we have about 12 minutes left for the entire talk, but we have some questions that they want answers. So I'll say if we
Lovely.
can, around 7-8 minutes on the questions. So that gives us around 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
Sure. So if I understand right, 12, like of our total 90 minutes together, we have 12 minutes left?
Yep.
Yes, we do. That's right. I'm working on thinking about time zone differences, which was completely unnecessary. All right, I will share this one last concept with you, and then we will go to Q&A. How's that?
Awesome.
So I think one of the core concepts that really helps all of us, no matter how much money we have, if we work on our mindset, this can help us enormously in how we end up deciding how we want to express our version of philanthropy to others. And so this idea of moving out of this programming, we all get programmed into this scarcity mentality into the idea of abundance. And so if I were to say in a nutshell, the difference, it's moving from a mindset, a scarcity mindset would be where we spend our attention on worrying and holding grudges, blaming and concern about loss, fear of loss, hoarding, all of this kind of tightness of behavior and sensation and emotion, and to actually just continue to open up and to cultivate gratitude. So even in a moment where you're really feeling strained, to just ask yourself, what is one thing that I could feel grateful for right now? Right now, I'm breathing, I am alive, I have a roof over my head, I have food, I have people who love me, I have people I love. We can always find something, right? And so cultivate that as a habit, to learn to, when we give with gladness, give with, it's my pleasure to give, and feel the happiness of that, because when we feel that, it comes back to us like thousandfold. Receive graciously too. When you get a gift, say thank you. Say thank you when you get a gift, even if it's a compliment. Say thank you and receive it, take it in. Also, just practicing noticing potential around you everywhere you go. It's everywhere. Practice bringing positive and resourceful energy to life. And I would say most of all, the ultimate task for all of us is really about trusting God, trusting life, that life wants us to thrive, that we're here for a purpose, every single one of us. It is our birthright to have a wonderful, joyful life of contribution. And so to just cultivate that mindset again and again. And it is a practice. All right, so here's a few quotes. Enough is a feast, a Buddhist proverb. I love this one. I've had it on my fridge for decades. Reminds me to eat just the right amount of food and not overindulge. And of course, when you get a gift, say thank you, which I've mentioned to you already. All right, well, so many stories to share with you. And I really want to pause and make space for the few minutes we have left for questions. And I thank you so much for your attention, everyone. So over to the questions.
Okay, so we have Miss Moza. She's asking, would it be better to plan improving satisfaction gradually instead of aiming at the optimal?
Thank you. And tell me your name again.
Moza.
Moza, yeah. So Moza, I would say both. I would say spend some time cultivating your vision as if it's already true. Just imagine that anything is truly possible, and you could see the optimum experience, feel the optimum pleasure and satisfaction of what the best relationship with money could be for you. So that's the optimum. Cultivate that vision and notice how it makes you feel as if it's already true. And then also focus on what are your next steps. So it's like creating anything. We're always working in this kind of cybernetic feedback loop between what I want and where I am now. And is what I'm doing moving me closer to my vision? Great. If so, keep doing that. If it's taking me farther away from my vision, then what might I do instead? How might I recalibrate or adjust or try something new? Life is just one grand experiment of moving closer and closer through our experimentation towards our vision. All right, has another question?
For that, we have Al Anud saying, wanting to control my relationship with money, sometimes I end up being controlled by it. Maybe it's considered a weakness. How could I overcome this weakness?
Yeah. Well, I think you and millions of other people, we have this weakness from time to time. You know, it's just called living in the 21st century, and how we've all been unconsciously socialized to feel like money is the king and it runs the show. And so, there's what I would encourage you is to catch yourself in those moments where you notice it And perhaps if you have a journaling practice, it's a wonderful opportunity to just write about your feelings in those moments when you catch yourself feeling caught. And I really encourage you to exercise self-compassion. And, with anything that we're trying to grow and improve in our life, the first thing is to accept what is and to give ourselves, lots of compassion that we are doing the very best we can. And then ask yourself, what part of this is within my control? What's one small shift that I could do, something different? And of course, I encourage you to work with a coach. Coaches are marvelous for helping people build their capacity in a number of different ways. Yeah, I wish you all the best. All right, we've got about 5 minutes left, so keep the questions coming, Kasim.
They are coming. So we have Jawahir is asking, is philanthropy better done anonymously or publicly when it's a single individual? Is there a way?
Yeah. Well, here's my opinion on this. You are the very best judge on whether you would choose to give publicly or privately or anonymously. There's a continuum there. There's public under all the lights and cameras. There's privately, but it's not a secret. And then there's anonymously, right? And any variation in between. And, some folks give formally to charities. Others like to give a lot informally as they see people in need from, on a day-to-day basis. So, there's a whole suitcase full of opportunities there for you to examine. And so I would just ask you, what resonates for you? What would be the most meaningful for you? And you might have a variety of choices in your mix.
Awesome, thank you. And we have a couple of questions from genuine souls. They chose to be anonymous. So one of these questions, I try my best to do a gratitude exercise every day where I write down I'm grateful for. What should I do if I start getting stuck and can't find more things to be grateful for?
Yeah. Sometimes when I feel stuck, I just repeat the things I've already said and already written. And sometimes something new will emerge. Or, the phone rings and I have a call with someone, and then there's something about that call I can suddenly be grateful for. Our attention is constantly shifting. Even go for a walk and then notice something else. Change your environment. Go help somebody, and then notice what comes up for you about your gratitude as a result of having the opportunity to partner with someone else. Yeah, those are some ideas for you.
Awesome. Another question, I believe being philanthropist starts with ourselves. What would you suggest to start doing that?
Yeah. Oh, I love your statement, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. It's like all the other qualities, when we're trying to cultivate compassion, starting with ourselves, practicing it with ourselves as well as with others, right? And so how might you be generous with yourself? And I really want to expand this understanding. Remember that philanthropy isn't just about money. Although it could be that if you have a habit of feeling unworthy of spending money on yourself, that the very thing you could do is give yourself a meaningful gift, right? And to actually spend some money on yourself. Only you can know, right? But another understanding is acts of kindness. So what are ways that you can show acts of kindness to yourself? And then volunteering your time. So if you and yourself were in a relationship, how would you like to become your very own best friend, your own benefactor? How would you like to have your own back? That's a question I would pose to you to explore.
It's a wonderful question. I love it. Okay, we have one time for 1 minute for one more question. This is by James. He's saying, we all know that money definitely is needed while we are still living in this world. In relationship aspects, husband and wife, what can you suggest to keep their relationship stronger even when money becomes problem?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that comes to mind actually is there are some absolutely wonderful coaches in the world who specialize in helping partners, spouses really create a vision for what they want as a couple and a vision for their family, and help them find the common ground, help them find the sweet spot between their various value systems, and really help them negotiate the important decisions with each other. And so that's something that comes to mind right now as a tip for you. Even looking for resources online around that might be a place to start.
Awesome. Okay. Oh my God, the time is already done. I cannot believe that was nice. Ready?
Yeah. So let me leave you with one last thought, if I may. So this is just a little bit of a closing then. I want to say that, you know, as I've shared all these stories with you, the value of other people's stories is to give us hope and inspiration, because each of us, we have our own path, because we have our own talents, our own unique constraints, and our own unique opportunities. And so I really just want to invite you to leap forward in time. Imagine that it's Ramadan 2022. And I want to ask you, what's a story that you would love to be sharing with others about your love for humanity? And I'll leave you with that.
Wow, that is, oh my God. I forgot how to what's next?
It's okay.
Yeah, amazing question. Oh my God, Lynn, every time we meet with you, every time I learn a lot. You are a wonder. I love spending every minute learning from you and the stories, your experiences. Thank you so much for being part of our Ramadan CSR. You have been a great value to every human here, and hopefully we reach together to even further and further. Thank you so much. And for everyone who's attended, thank you so much for attending, for staying with us. We would love to hear some feedback from you. My friend Nuran will launch a quick poll. Love to hear feedback from you. And we would love to see you again and again in the CSR. And Lynn, I think on behalf of all of Corey and everyone here, thank you so much for this wonderful CSR today.
Oh, I'm just honored to have been invited into this space with you all. And I also am very grateful for your engagement, your wonderful comments in the chat, and all of your inspiring points as well. It was something beautiful that we created together. And I just think, you know, all of us, let's co-reach for a better life.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone. Enjoy your night and see you tomorrow, inshallah, with the next CSR. Salam alaikum.